When it comes to Hakeem's legendary career, 3 seasons are usually mentioned. There's 1986 when the Rockets reached the finals, and the 2 seasons that he won the title. That's 1994 and 1995. As iconic as those seasons were, his 1993 campaign gets overlooked way too often. The numbers even say that he never had a better regular season, even better than his 1994 MVP season. Let's first start with the statistical argument for him. He averaged 26.1 points on 53% shooting, 13 rebounds, 4.2 blocks, and 3.5 assists per game. The numbers that he posted are something that we shouldn't take lightly. There have only been 3 times in history that a player has averaged over 25 points, 10 rebounds, and 4 blocks in a season. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in his 1975-76 MVP season and Patrick Ewing in the 1989-90 season were the only times that has been accomplished. He also posted career highs in many of the advanced metrics. He recorded the highest offensive rating, win shares, offensive win shares per 48 minutes, value over replacement player rating, box plus minus, offensive box plus minus, true shooting percentage, and PER of his career. One of the 5 greatest centers of all time was in peak form, and he broke many records. He recorded the 9th most blocks for a single season, along with the 12th highest blocks per game average ever. He also posted the 6th highest defensive win shares for a single season since the NBA/ABA merger. He had a historically great defensive season, and that is why he won the first Defensive Player of the Year award of his career. On top of that, he finished 4th in scoring. It's no wonder why Sacramento Kings center Wayman Tisdale said this to Sports Illustrated about Olajuwon that season. Quote, "Nobody in the league dominates the game on both ends of the floor like Hakeem." End of quote. There were plenty of instances where he completely dominated his opponents. For example, he scored a season high of 45 points on 53% shooting, along with 14 rebounds, 4 steals, and 2 blocks against David Robinson and the San Antonio Spurs. Then there was a game against Patrick Ewing in the New York Knicks when he had 42 points on 58% shooting, 12 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 blocks, and 2 steals. There are a couple more noteworthy games that prove how legendary of a season this was. There was a game against the Clippers when he recorded the stat line of 42 points on 68% shooting, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 steals, and 4 blocks. That performance is a perfect example of everything he had to do in order for his team to pull out some of these victories. And finally, there was a game against the Blazers when he had 40 points on 73% shooting, 10 blocks, 9 rebounds, and 3 assists. That is only the 3rd time in NBA history that a player has recorded over 40 points and 10 blocks in a game. He was carrying his team each and every game, and the Rockets turned into one of the top teams in the league. They won 55 games. He was getting so much recognition for the way he turned that franchise around. They went from winning 42 games and missing the playoffs the previous year to being tied for the 2nd best record in the West. They went from being 20th in offensive rating and 10th in defensive rating to the 6th best offensive rating and 3rd best defensive rating. It's no wonder he finished 2nd in MVP voting, and he even finished ahead of Michael Jordan. Who was the sole reason for their amazing turnaround season? The answer couldn't be more obvious. Keep in mind that there was no one else who averaged over 14 points or 10 rebounds per game. They also didn't make any big trades, and they didn't make any big acquisitions through free agency. Their biggest offseason move was drafting Robert Horry. This was basically the same team from the previous year. The only difference is that Hakeem took his game to a level that we've rarely seen from a big man. In order to reach that level, he needed to make changes to his approach and mentality. He showed a willingness to pass the ball more thanks to his newfound trust in his teammates. Much of the criticism he would receive early on in his career was due to his unwillingness to pass out the double and triple teams. He didn't trust his teammates to make the open shot, so he would often force his way through a sea of people to try to get a shot up. That was no longer the case. Did you know that before this season, he never averaged more than 3 assists per game? In the previous year, he dished out a total of 157 assists. But in 1993, he dished out 291 assists, which was his career high. His improved ability to pass the ball lessened the number of double and triple teams he faced, which in turn gave him more room to score. This was the beginning of his transformation that eventually turned him into a champion. And it's crazy, the Rockets were so close to never seeing this happen. The feeling around the league was that he was going to get traded prior to the start of this season. He was unhappy with his contract situation, and the Rockets claimed that he was faking an injury in order to renegotiate his contract. This led to the team suspending him, and Hakeem vented his frustrations publicly with the media. He seemed fed up with the team, and rightfully so. They felt surrounded with a strong supporting cast for years after they traded away Ralph Sampson in the middle of the 1987-88 season. No one would have blamed him if he decided to look elsewhere to compete for a title. Instead of doing everything possible to force his way out of Houston, he eventually made his peace with owner Charlie Thomas. That decision to stay put was a wise one, and we saw what he was able to accomplish with this team in the following years. But his greatness in 1993 didn't just end with the regular season. He was also impressive in the playoffs. In the first round, they were pushed to the limit by the Los Angeles Clippers. It came down to the deciding 5th game, and Hakeem had an underrated performance. He had 31 points on 52% shooting, 21 rebounds, 7 blocks, 3 steals, and 3 assists. The second round series against the Sonics also went down to the wire. It went to a 7th game. On the road, he gave an absolute defensive masterpiece. He defended the rim as well as any player could. He had 3 blocks and changed the shots of so many others. The game went to overtime, and they had a shot at defeating this team. In the closing moments, Vernon Maxwell missed a potential game-winning shot, and then Hakeem couldn't tie the game. It was a disappointing end to their season, and for many people, it was proof that this team just wasn't deep enough to contend for a title. We all know that Hakeem and the Rockets were ready to prove everyone wrong. They deserve all the credit in the world for the season they had in 1994. But this was the beginning of all that. This was confirmation that they could win the title as constructed. They just needed a few more pieces to complete the puzzle. It's clear that they would have never realized this if Hakeem hadn't raised his level of play the way he did. This would end up being the start of one of the most dominant 3-year stretches in NBA history. But what about you all? What do you remember the most from Hakeem's 1993 season? Do you think the Rockets could have given the Phoenix Suns a run for their money in the conference finals if they had defeated the Sonics? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.